Welcome to the Unplanned Fireworks Show.
Thank you.
I am Maria Cornelius. I'm president of ETSCJ, and we do this every year in partnership with the League of Women Voters, and they do a wonderful job, so thank you to them. Thank you also to our representatives that made it and senators. We have, of course, both Senators Massey and Briggs and Representatives Wright and McKenzie. Representative Johnson wanted to be here, but she had a pre-scheduled trip out of town, so we told her that was okay, she could keep that trip. I know, is it Representative Wright, do you need to leave a little bit early? Okay, he has another engagement. Jesse Mayshark is co-founder of The Compass. He is going to serve as our moderator today. And Jesse, at the very end, I've already got those questions, so we'll save a little time for that. And I will turn it over to Jesse. Thank you.
All right, good morning. Sorry for the delay in getting started, and I want to give a big thanks and shout out to Pierce Gentry over here. As he said to us several times, I'm not an engineer, but he did get this up and running, so we really appreciate that. Thanks to all of our representatives who are here today, and we're going to go ahead and get started because we're starting a little bit late. And so so all of you have the one microphone that is working right now. So maybe Senator Massey, if we could start down at your end of the table, and I would just ask each of you to kind of go down the table, give us a quick introduction of who you are, what district you represent, and also if you could talk about just one or two major items or priorities that you personally are working on or are tracking through this year's legislative session. I think that would be a great place to start. Senator Becky Duncan Massey.
Thank you. I'm serve the 6th district of Knox County, but we just don't differentiate. Senator Briggs and I just serve Knox County as a whole, and I think that's the important thing. You know, there's so many common interests that we try to go off of each other's strengths too. But I guess probably the one thing I'm working the most on, which is not a bill, but it's a funding thing, is getting the 25 mental health beds funded that Commissioner Williams had asked for funding. And so I've been working strategy on that, and I've got some very interesting bills, but that's the one that's the most important for me right now.
Yeah, I'm State Senator Richard Briggs. If Senator Massey even had to introduce herself to anyone who doesn't know her, I don't think you're from around here. She's been around here so long. But just like she said, she and I represent Knox County, and we don't really focus so much on the districts. As far as one bill that I have that I'm very interested in this year, is that we hear from so many young people that it doesn't matter if you're a Democrat or Republican. We're not listening to those millennials and some of those people. It deals with child care. Child care has become unaffordable for so many people. I look through this group and I don't think there's too many here with young children, but you may have young grandchildren, you may have children that have young children, and it very much affects their lives. Between student loans and unaffordable child care, it's really putting a lot of financial pressures, on our people that are trying to raise families, and so mine deals with child care.
Dave Wright. Thank you all for being here. You're putting feet on your focus today. I represent the east side of the county. That's 3 precincts north of Halls and 3 precincts across the river. Mostly rural. I've said this before, may have said it here. I represent all the cows and half the horses in Knox County. The other half of the horses are well-to-do and they live in Farragut. Which leads me to something that I'd like to speak about is Senator Massey and I are sponsoring, you have to have verbiage in both houses, about an agricultural center being located in Knox County, Rutledge Pike, Asheville Highway, somewhere with 4-lane access, 100 acres, lights, water, gas, that kind of facility. that would involve the University of Tennessee, the state of Tennessee, and Knox County, and a year-round location that could have equestrian events or cat and dog shows or agricultural research. It would get the people that do that governmental agricultural activity, it'd get them out into an area where they could actually have ground, dirt, acreage to illustrate what would help the agricultural community here in Knox County and surrounding counties.
Good morning, I'm Sam McKenzie. I represent the 15th District. Welcome to the 15th District. It's East Knoxville, where we are now downtown, South Knoxville, and then Mechanicsville, Lonsdale, and Beaumont. So it's kind of the core part of our great city. You know, as you know, being in a super minority, a lot of what we try to do, we pass a few bills, but we work on a lot of good bills. But what we try to do is really block those bills that are injurious to people in general, and Knox County and specifically. So you know, I'm on the education committee, and the voucher educational savings plan, whatever you want to call it, passed last year. We're trying to get two things. I'm trying to do: get the data on who actually received these vouchers, which I think is reasonable because these are taxpayer dollars. But then stop the expansion. There's a move afoot to pretty much double what we have currently. So, like I said, a lot of what we do, it's really try to protect the interests of the working folks and the people that just really want to live a good life in whatever capacity people are.
Jesse will be back, I promise.
What did I say?
Here.
They're done.
Yeah.
Switch it up.
While we're waiting, just to kind of piggyback off of what Sam said, every bill has to have a House sponsor and a Senate sponsor, and then it's assigned in committee. And oftentimes we get all these emails about bills that I won't ever see until it hits the Senate floor, if it's not going through one of my two committees. So I'm on the Health Committee, and then I chair the Transportation and Safety Committee. And so those really, between those bills that come through those two committees and then the bills that I'm sponsoring, that's really where your focus is. And then when it's coming to the floor, and oftentimes bills change in the process. So, you know, somebody, you know, at the beginning it just may be awful or the end of the world or whatever, but over the course it may get, if it keeps on moving, it can get better. Sometimes it can get worse, but it usually will get better. And then if it has a fiscal note, which means it's going to cost the state something, then, you know, they've got to get it funded. And if it wasn't funded in the governor's budget and it doesn't get funded in the supplemental budget, we won't ever vote on it. So sometimes you look at, when somebody contacts me, I look at who the sponsors are, I look at if it has a fiscal note, I look at kind of where it's going, but, you know, or if people come in and see me and ask me about that, well, what about Senate Bill 2003? Well, I don't even know my own bill numbers, let alone the bills, you know, so, you know, but I kind of look it up and kind of help people understand the process, because I think that's real important. I mean, it's almost not worth me having an opinion on other than being aware that something is coming up until it gets closer to me having to make a vote on it. So, I mean, that doesn't mean I don't want people to contact. The other thing, I'm going to do the mom lecture. Please don't do the push button emails. That's where you fill in your name and address, and all of a sudden we get 200 of that exact same email. They're ineffective. It'd be more effective to do a one sentence, I support this, I don't support this. Because one, if you know, somebody else is sending me a very personal email that they need help with something, it gets lost in the middle of those, and I might not be able to get it. I mean, it takes me, my assistant, and my intern handling all those emails to try to sort through them. And we don't want to miss somebody's email that really does need some help. It's real time sensitive. And so just a tip, you can still do them, just know I don't like them. I mean, I actually hate them. Off session, there was an event taking place in Oak Ridge that at a hotel, and they sent it to a house member, to me, and to the manager. In between noon and 6 on a Sunday afternoon, I got 1,000 emails. So that pushed me over the edge. I absolutely hate them. So, and I'll let them tell their committees too, because I think that's important while we're dancing around killing time. Is that what we're doing, or do you have questions now?
I do have a question, so I could, Jesse, oh, he's back. Thank
I was
you.
just trying to help kill time.
Here's the question for later.
Okay, sorry about that. All the pre-show excitement and did not make a necessary stop. All right, so I have some issues that I think we can talk about. I do have a question here, and then if anybody has any questions that you want to write down and submit, write them on the cards and hold up your hand, and somebody will come around and collect them. I wanted to, yes, sorry.
I'd just like to hear right off what committees each of them are.
Sorry?
So what committees they're each sponsoring?
Oh, that's actually a good place to start. I usually do ask that at the beginning.
I told mine already.
Okay, yeah, let's come on down the road.
I'm the chairman of the State and Local Government Committee and also on the Transportation Committee in the Senate
You're only on 2. Yeah.
with, only on 2 with Senator Massey.
In the House, I'm the vice chair of state and local government and also a member of transportation.
I'm the Democratic whip in the House, in our caucus. I sit on Education Committee, Health Committee, then I'm also on Governmental Operations Committee and Ethics Committee as well.
All right, I thought we could start out with a question. I don't know how many of you are on committees that are dealing with these bills directly right now, but obviously the Republican caucus in the legislature came out at the start of the session and talked about this whole raft of immigration-related bills. This is a major focus for this session. And I'm not going to there's a bunch of these bills, and I won't try to go through all of them individually, but the overall impact and thrust of the bills seems to be to kind of engage all levels of state and local government in various kinds of immigration and citizenship verification and enforcement. And so I would just like to hear from any of you your thoughts about that overall effort in terms of this being a major focus for the state legislature. Whoever wants to take it, and I'm not surprised that Representative McKenzie has thoughts on it.
I have some, extremely strong thoughts on it. But first and foremost, this isn't a state issue. Immigration, last I looked, Tennessee does not border a foreign country. And that's why these issues are federal issues. Because while it affects us, there's another issue. When you heard my colleague from Farragut go on and on and on about talking with Stephen Miller and Donald Trump, there's a reason. They're trying to get us to do their bidding. And that makes absolutely no sense at all. And you're right in terms of they've got the shotgun approach to this. Pretty much every committee is having to deal with education issues, with transportation issues, with state and local issues, department and agency issues. We're gonna throw everything against the wall and see what sticks. It's unfortunate. In education, there's already been a Supreme Court decision that says, bottom line, if they're here, last I checked, a 4-year-old, I don't think can go from, Honduras into Knoxville. So they were brought here. We have a responsibility to educate. We have a responsibility to make sure that we're not creating chaos. And having 8, 10%, whatever the population of our kids roaming around, 2%, roaming around without any public education, just to me makes no sense. So again, it's deeply troubling, but a lot of these bills are actually starting to take shape. Some by folks from Knox County that are carrying these bills that we shouldn't even be delving in. I'm all for it. Let me be clear. There should be a process to come here legally, so be clear, I'm not for open borders. I'm for, if there is a criminal, but having a bent license tag is not a criminal, so we got all these attacks, especially in our urban areas in Nashville, which is horrible. So again, I don't want to go on and on about it, but this shouldn't be before us in the 114th General Assembly, and unfortunately, it has been brought.
So give me a moment of personal privilege. Seeing Victor Ash carry in his blue book, there needs to be 3 new blue book carriers this morning, and I have those 3 books here for anyone who'd like to ask for one. The other thing that I need to say something about, I will be here till whenever you stop asking questions. I just need to move on a little bit because this past week we were given 2 saplings on Wednesday, and by Thursday noon I had 34. So I need to go home and put out 34 little saplings. That's what I would have. I have a neighbor that's helping me, and he's already probably at this. What I'm about to say is what I believe, but the words I'm going to use were given me in a conversation yesterday morning with my congressman. I'm not going to stand at the schoolhouse door or medical facility door and deprive anyone of what might benefit them in those 2 buildings.
I have just a couple of comments. First of all, I'm not Representative McKenzie's colleague that's from Farragut that's saying those things. The second thing is when we talk about immigrants, we're talking about all immigrants. And my next door neighbor is a blonde-haired, blue-eyed Canadian married to an American. She's a native English speaker. With DOGE, they've cut down the number of people that are employed by the State Department. And if usually she can get this done about 8 weeks ahead of time. She's running up on the deadline right now. Now, is she going to be taken into custody and sent to some detention center in Louisiana? I don't know. Straight across the street from me was the former Denso owned company's house where the Japanese person, they usually do 3 or 4 year rotations here. His wife doesn't speak real great English. Are we going to say that we're not going to let the CEO, North American CEO of Denso's wife not drive? Also, right in our neighborhood, I went to a reception that a very wealthy person had when Orano, the largest investment that's ever made, almost twice the largest investment ever made in the state of Tennessee, they had a reception for him. I talked to him. He speaks English very well. He's French. His wife is not so good in English. Are we going to make those people so she can't get a driver's license, their kids can't go to school, all of this other? Or if there's a delay when it comes time to renewing her visa, that someone that's making a $10 billion investment in our state is going to be detained and sent to, now the truth is probably they'll get special treatment, but that's what the law says, is if they'll come, they may knock on her door, they may knock the door down and take her away. And this is in a nice neighborhood. And also, I met earlier this year, during the summer, it was an Englishman who is the CEO of a company, and he's wanting to come to Tennessee, wanting to come to East Tennessee, and build a factory that makes these PET scans. Any in the medical field may know what a PET scan is. He is not going to compete with, our PET scan people that are here in town right now, but he says there's a certain cachet that Made in America still has, particularly in the Asian countries. And he can sell his machines, and believe it or not, they do have the resources to buy those in Pakistan, in Cambodia, in Vietnam, in these emerging economies. But they would need to bring They would need to bring people over here to train from 3 to 6 months. And they're all gonna go home. These aren't people coming over here to stay. The decision's now been made that they're not gonna build that here. But that's what I'm concerned about, is not necessarily, I'm concerned about a lot of these other things that's been mentioned. But I'm saying that not everyone that is an immigrant are, who the stereotype says. And I just want to mention one other factor too. 60% of the PhDs given in physics at American universities are by foreign-born folks. 45% of the chairmen of the Department of Physics in this country are foreign-born.
Thank you. And I agree with a lot of what was said up here today. It's, I've always said, and when I was at Sir Thomas Center, we had some folks working with me that were here legally, that added a lot to, our workforce there. And I supported them. And I also watched some of them that were going through the citizenship process. The government kept losing their applications, and they'd have to resubmit, and then they'd have to pay these lawyers all this money, which should be a reasonably easy process, but going through, if you follow the steps. And so I felt for a long time that our federal immigration system was broken and needed to be cleared up, but obviously it seems like Washington as a whole can't get anything done. Doesn't matter who's the president, Washington can't get anything done. That's why when Jimmy stepped down, I said not just no, I didn't want to run for Congress. No. Sorry, Michaela. I know you want to, but it's I've lived around it, and I just didn't want to. But I think what we're seeing, unfortunately, is a reaction to years of a porous port. And too many people got in, a lot of folks that were dangerous. And I do support finding the folks and most of the folks that have been arrested, the majority of the folks that have been arrested in Tennessee have come from the jails. The statistics are there in the report, but I hated that it's reactionary because it's going to hurt some people that don't need to be hurt, that are here doing things right. But it's tough. It's a hard place to be in, and so we try to do the best we can to make sure what passes is reasonable, and sometimes we can take care of that. Sometimes we can't.
All right, well, we'll move to an audience question, and this is directed at Representative Wright, although, of course, open to anyone else who wants to chime in and maybe relevant to those saplings that you have to take care of. The question is, agriculture in Tennessee is impacted by local zoning as well as state regulations, with Knox County having recently rewritten its land use plans. The question says, fertile lands are being developed and lost. What would you do, and or what can or does the state do to try to protect some of our fertile agricultural land?
The most important thing that you need to know from me is that I grew up on a dairy farm. My grandfather had an acre of tobacco and 2 mules a long time ago. 2 younger brothers, but we're all retired. We still have all of Mom and Dad's real estate, and I have an additional 25 acres of what was my grandfather's farm. Agriculture is in my blood. We need to do our best at making sure that rural spaces are retained, maybe incentivized, like placing in easements or conservation things. I don't know how much the state of Tennessee can get involved in cash flow whenever we're up against mental health, or we're up against education buildings, or we're up against major transportation issues in the state of Tennessee. So, what can we do? The state can incentivize. But I think the state just writes the rules that you have to stay within whenever you do land use. The reason we got 95 counties in the state of Tennessee is because every one of them is different. Even the large county, Knox County, is different from the other 3 large counties. And maybe there's another county that's going to come into being a large county, rising into that top 4. The true emphasis of where a community needs to be has got to be at the county commission level. That's the reason county commission exists, is land use, zoning. Maybe one other thing that would enter into this in some people's conversations is property tax. That's a county issue because 95 counties and they're all different.
Anybody else want to speak to agriculture? Okay, well, we'll move on to a question about accountability for public education funds. The question says, the school vouchers that use our tax dollars to pay for private schools are accountability sinks. There should be the same amount of oversight applied to voucher dollars as there is to public school funding. Testing, assessment, and public reporting are all required to create public trust. Otherwise, vouchers are a transfer of wealth from the bottom to the top. And so I guess to put that in the form of a question, and Representative McKenzie, let's start with you, maybe because I know you actually had a bill dealing with this. Do you think there needs to be some greater level of accountability placed on the voucher dollars that are going out from the state? If so, what form do you think that should take?
Thank you, and thank you for that question. Absolutely. My bill was really simple. Unfortunately, it got into partisan politics, and that's what killed it along party lines. And just to make sure everyone understands, so we give basically $7,800, around $8,000, which is the state portion, the average state portion, to students to go from public schools to private schools. And the way they divided it up this year was 10,000 seats, 10,000 vouchers went for income-based, which is $175,000 for family of 4. Pretty good. And then the other $10,000 had no cap. Billionaires could apply for it. So that was one concern. So what my bill asked was, how many of those students that received those 20,000 vouchers were already in private school? And then how many are first-time students? How many are coming from out of town? Basic questions. And so what that would tell us is, who's getting it? The Catholic school system, I just pulled the numbers, the Catholic school systems in Knox County, the ones that feed up to Knox Catholic, Sacred Heart, St. John, all those schools, there were almost 900 vouchers given of that 20,000 to those students. Do you think our Catholic school system grew by 900 students? No. They might have grown 10%. So we're basically giving money away. These people were paying their tuition or getting this scholarship and we're giving this money away. It makes no sense for accountability. My colleague, extremely conservative colleague on the other side of the aisle, Jody Barrett, has a great bill, but his is asking all sorts of information. Incomes, 75,000 or below, 75 to 120. What the racial demographics? How many counties are getting students, are getting these vouchers? Cause two things. If we could look at that, I'm telling you, there was some cherry picking going on. We gave more than $20,000 worth of 20,000 vouchers away because people say, hey, my friend down the street wanted it and didn't get it. So we're above that 20 thing. You just straight math would tell you we've given out more than 20,000. So this has become a program that this governor has created to create what his goal is. I hate to say this, to create two separate and unequal school systems. Not based on race necessarily, but on the haves and the have-nots. And that's what kills me. A school system like Knox County, we're doing pretty good. So for anyone to say that Knox County needed vouchers, that we needed school choice, our schools are good. And the ones in my district that were struggling, they're coming up. Lonsdale is done. They're off. They're going to be a B or A student. Austin East has moved up. Let's invest in what we're supposed to invest in, which is public schools. But hopefully I answered the question. But it's, transparency. They don't want transparency. Be clear. They're going to kill all of these bills that ask where these students are coming from because they know the answer. And the answer would really upset you all. It really would upset the common person in Tennessee that said, that's not what I thought this was about. They always came at the beginning of it. Well, these kids in these failing schools really need an opportunity to choose where they go. That's not happening. You're not going to go to Austin East to Webb or to Catholic for $8,000 when it costs $28,000 or $20,000. It was a tax break that I guess allowed these folks to get, a new car, put a down payment on a second house. But this, unfortunately, is where we are today.
So adding a little bit to that, I have just noticed that you have seated here in front of you 3 people that entered Knox County Commission at the same time. I hope that we are tenured, and then there are others, county commissioners, 2 or 3 seated in the audience that were Knox County commissioners. I hope that it's our aspiration to, he's right there, see, Ed Schaus, hold your hand up. Can't find Ed Schaus, he's everywhere. When I was in commission, he was at 5 and 6 things a night, and I couldn't hardly get to 2 or 1. Now you've made me lose my train of thought. No. I hope that we have aspired to do the best that we can to represent those, in our instance now, Sam and I, 70 or 75,000 people maybe, and the senators have extremely larger numbers of people and diversity to look at, and I hope that I know they're doing the best they can to represent their constituents. In the information about, you said billionaires, there are millionaires that have received vouchers, and I don't like that. The expansion of the program, I don't know whether I like that or not, because our first year in Nashville, our first year, Memphis and Nashville went out in some kind of a voucher program that just barely passed after the board and the House being open for an hour, maybe. I don't know how long it was open. I have to brag on, and it's not because I have a nephew who is a member of the school board. That's Travis Wright. He's a good-looking guy, so you need to keep your eye on him. Knox County schools have incrementally outperformed what their expectation may have been, and I lay that all to the fact that Knox County Board of Education has hired the best. They didn't hire the right guy. They hired the best guy that could lead the Board of Education in Knox County right now.
I want to say very little, and many of you all know how I have voted on the vouchers in the past. And I will say that we need more transparency. I like to think of myself as being a scientist. I'm data-driven. My decisions are data-driven. There may be some children who would benefit from vouchers. And those children might be someone who is going to a school that does not have, and by the way, you cannot use the vouchers to go from public school to public school. I was written by, I talked on the phone, and then I called a lady another lady later who sent me an email that lived in Sevier County, and they want their child to go to the International Baccalaureate program at West High School. The International Baccalaureate program is internationally recognized as one of the most rigorous K through 12 educations you can receive. And she was not allowed to use the vouchers, so her child could go to that program. So it's not exactly being truthful when we say the parents know best or it's in the child's interest, because we're restricting it. We're not allowing them to go from public school to public school. And I think I better not say anything more.
I think we need more transparency. I think we need to make sure that the recommendations from the comptroller's audit are followed through on, and continue to look at that. So I will support transparency efforts if they make it to the Senate floor, which they may very well not, but I will support them.
Okay, we have another question here, and maybe we can start right with you, Senator Massey. The question is about the state's rainy day fund, and it says that we have a significant rainy day fund. What do you think it should be used for, and under what conditions? And I want to add on top of that, broaden the discussion a little bit to talk about the overall budget situation that we are facing this year, that you are anticipating and hearing about from the governor's office, because I assume that our budgetary outlook probably has a lot to do with what you think we can or should use that rainy day fund for.
I do think it's responsible to have a rainy day fund. I think it's important at the size of our budget that our state is growing and our economy is growing, and I think that it's reflective of that, so I don't think it's out of whack necessarily. I think when the rainy day fund should not necessarily be used for recurring expenses. I think it needs to be more one-time expenses, like having the funds to front load if needed, like when Helene happened. And, we know we're going to get some of the federal government funds back, and some of our counties are going to be back. We had another resource that we were able to use, but I do think it can front load some things like that when disasters happen and we have to respond.
If you look at the law and the legislation on when the rainy day fund can be used, it can be used during the fiscal year. We make estimates on what we think the revenues are going to be, and if those revenues fall short, we don't want to be laying off state police. We don't want to be laying off teachers, doing a bunch of things to try to make the governor and the commissioner of finance can use those funds without the legislature's authority or permission. If it's for anything else, there would have to be probably a special session, depending on when this occurs, to look at the rainy day fund. They absolutely cannot be used for any recurring expenses. This is a rainy day fund. It's a separate fund. On the county commission, our so-called rainy day fund is just the fund balance that's left in the general fund. That's very different than the rainy day fund. We did dip into the rainy day funds during the Great Recession. That was the last time we did it. We didn't have to do it during the COVID crisis because there were federal funds flowing in from Washington. But if anybody thinks that the sun's always going to shine and the money's always going to come in and we don't need to have this significant rainy day fund, I think we're being overly optimistic.
I think they've hit all the important points. I mean, who expects the flood, the 100-year flood that was a result of hurricane? Everyone and everything has to have you got a rainy day fund, whether you know it or not. If you have a flat tire, that's not expected, you got to fix it. I'll use the E911 facility here in Knox County. So a tower blows over, they got to have money somewhere to immediately get something done. As with with Senator Massey's and my bill on the Ag Center, you have to grow things and you have to have money somewhere, and you have to do things at a time when you cannot see the end result. So in that circumstance, you have to have a little money in your pocket every now and then.
So I agree with everything that's been said. That definitely our rainy day fund should not be can't be for recurring. That makes no sense, right? Then you're going to spend down. Our rainy day fund is significant right now, and we continue to put in. I've not checked that number, Shannon, on whether we're adding on this year, but when we're cutting. But several years we were adding when I don't think it was warranted. I think we need to be wise with how we're adding to the rainy day fund because we're struggling. This budget is tight. And so, we need to be very conscious and conscientious of that. Our rainy day fund comes in kind of two buckets. There's one for our TennCare program, and they spent the TennCare money out of, they loaned for Helene money out of the TennCare, but Senator Briggs is right. We've not taken money out since the recession. I'm all for. I think it's high right now, personally. I mean, from a fiscal standpoint, from a percent of budget, I think we're high. And there are projects that our roads in horrible shape. And our deferred maintenance and our project list is growing, and we're not keeping up and catching up. So there are things like that, mental health. There are things that we should be spending. But the other piece of that is, during my time in the legislature, we keep giving these huge tax breaks. We give a huge tax break to businesses on the threat. And a lot of that money are from out-of-state businesses. So I think we got to be more sound with how we're doling out our money and tucking away our money to make sure that we have enough for that flat tire or that new building or whatever, but we're also taking care of our citizens.
All right, and Representative McKenzie, we'll start with you on the next one because I'm pretty sure that you at least will have some strong thoughts about this. What do you think of the bill proposed by some of your colleagues that would, this says, establish the death penalty for women who have abortions? I think that bill treats abortion as a homicide, which can be punished up to and including the death penalty. Representative McKenzie.
I mean, this is asinine. What are you talking about? And that's what I tell people. Why are we engaging in this conversation? This is not what you all sent us to Nashville to do. There's so much saber rattling and going on now. And I'll say this, and that's why I will come here every year, because journalism is dying, and they are doing these things in Nashville saying that the people home are not going to see me doing these stupid things. They're doing it, they're a lawyer trying to get to the Supreme Court. But we've got to keep shining a light on things like that. So, there's a couple of amendments. We got adults here. One would make a vasectomy a Class B felony. Just to say, how stupid is this? And what you're talking about. And most of these people presenting these bills are beyond childbearing years. So let's look back at their life. This bothers me. They're pandering to their whatever base that is. I don't even know. It's not right, or I don't know what it is. But we've got to stop this. We've got to be a lot more serious about things and a lot less hateful. Yeah. These are hateful pieces of legislation that have no business in place.
So that doesn't die for a lack of a second, I say.
I think this is another case, I better not say too much, but I'm a lot more interested in the bill that would prevent the government from putting space alien DNA in the vaccines.
I think you've got 3 extra votes besides Sam's. The thing that bothers me the most is those kind of bills, obviously, we hope they get killed before we ever have a chance to vote on them, because, they make no sense to me at all. But it colors and it kind of hides all the good bills that are going through. that really are saving lives, that are making a difference every day. And I mean, a good 90% of everything that passes are really make a difference, a positive difference in people's life. Just like the Silver Alert bill that we've all worked on. Senator Griggs started it. I got it over the finish line. We had to get it funded the next year, but it's saved over 500 lives. Over 500 people. I think while they were down there this year, it got to 501 people returned to their families. And so there are so many good things that we just hear about this, what I call crap, that really is, just kind of muddy in the water, and we don't hear about all the really good things that people bring to you that they want you to try to get past, that we, all four of us up here work on. So that's my opinion.
Okay, and Senator Massey, we will start with you on the next one because this is an issue you've certainly worked on a lot. We have multiple questions about both mental health and homeless services, both in terms of being able to provide the mental health service and also in terms of being able to provide housing resources and help to people who are homeless. Senator Massey, and then anybody else who wants to jump in. Are there any, you talked about the funding that you're pursuing for the center here. Can you talk about that a little bit more, and then any other initiatives at the state level that you see or would like to see addressing that whole matrix of needs?
Well, the mental health issue is something that's very important to me. 3 days after I was elected, they called me up and told me that Lakeshore was closing. At the time, it was probably a right decision because ultimately there were people, there were about 100 people at Lakeshore at the time. 50 were living there permanently and 50 were revolving door. A hospital is no place to live permanently. I don't care what anybody says, it's no place to live permanently. Some people may need 2, 3, 4, 5 months to get stabilized, and then they may need to go into some kind of supported housing, like maybe 8 or 10 people, something that's got a much better quality of life. I mean, I had visited Lakeshore before. I visited it during the step down in the closure, and those folks didn't really, they were given the best care they could, but there just was no quality of life. So just because somebody's experiencing severe mental health issues doesn't mean we don't respect them and we don't offer the best life that we can give them so they can live their best life that they can. So over the years, I've made sure that the state promises that the money would stay in the region, and this is a 24-county region, to provide mental health supports. Well, every year during the commissioner's budget hearings, I've asked for her accountability, and we've made sure that they've lived up to the promises, and they have. Actually, a few years ago, Senator Briggs and Lieutenant Governor McNally and I requested a study be done, and more people exponentially have been served through community resources, both inpatient and outpatient, than ever would have been served at Lakeshore. But the issue is the mental health challenges, folks experiencing mental health needs, is growing. Not just in Knoxville, not just in East Tennessee, not just in our state, nationally. I recently, a few years back, co-chaired a national task force on mental health and employment. So as I've said, this is an issue that's near and dear to my heart. So after we got this study, we started looking at trying to started talking about a mental health hospital. Well, to get a mental health hospital is a lot of money, and it takes a lot of time. We've probably got some good ideas for a location, but it's a multi-year process. I'd say 5 or 6 years at the best once you get the administration to agree to fund it. So in working with Commissioner Williams, she came to me and she said, I've got an idea. Something that's not going to be the permanent solution, but will help us. And she said, we built the Impasse Center there over at the old St. Mary's site that is basically trying to divert some folks with mental health needs from an emergency room. So it's like a little bit less than 24-hour care. So the second floor was never, at one point there was a potential use for it, but it was not ever utilized, and so it's a shell. She said we could finish that off. Helen Ross McNabb had been accepted for an RFP had we needed it, so that's already in place. And we can put 25 secure beds there for mental health beds, and these will be people that are not the super low acuity that have needs that are going to Peninsula or to Ridgedale. I always forget which one it is. Huh? Ridgeview. I always sit there and second guess myself. But anyway, over in Oak Ridge and then one in Upper East Tennessee. It's not going to take all the ones that are being taken down to Chattanooga to Moccasin Bend that maybe are coming from jails or need forensic interviews, but it will take some of them, okay? And this will be where somebody can get a little bit longer care and stabilized. And then ideally find a better living situation once they're stabilized, but not a week, not a 2 week, more a little bit longer, kind of that in between, you know, what they need at Moccasin Bend and what Peninsula could do. So she requested it in her budget. There was a renovation amount of $12 million. There was an $8 million recurring amount for services. It did not get funded in the governor's budget. So what we've done is we've drafted a letter to the governor because at the end of March, basically a supplemental budget will come out and there will be some extra money there. We did this letter. Every member from a 24-county region signed that letter. Every House member, every senator, everyone obviously at this table, Republican, Democrat, everybody signed the letter and said, please fund it. I've met this past week with the Commissioner of Finance, and he always asks me, what's your number one thing you want funded for Knoxville? And there's a lot of things I want funded for Knoxville, and I take him all of them, but the number one thing was the mental health beds. Now, the recurring part, we don't need $8 million the first year because they won't be serving people the whole year. So I said, okay, I got you a deal. You know, give me the $12 million and give me $2 or $3 million because we're going to have to start hiring people that last quarter. I said, then we won't have the $12 million the next year. We just have the 8, so it's a bargain. So anyway, I try to look for ways to make things happen. So, and we've got a request in to try to go and sit down with the governor also. And I'm hopeful that we can get it funded. You know, we never know. I don't count my chickens until they're hatched, but it is something that I'm very passionate about. And really, we're going to continue to work on. Then after that is done, because I'm hopeful, we can reassess, possibly do a new study, see what the needs are, and then start working with the incoming governor to get the full-blown hospital done. So as far as housing for homeless, that's not my expertise. I don't know if anyone else has some things on that, and there's some other things we do that'll be kind of fringe around the edges, but that's really the main thing I'm working on.
Anybody want to jump in on?
I think she covered that pretty well.
She did. I'll say something really quick, and it's something Dr. Briggs I know is probably shaking his head on. But I think it sparks a good conversation. We've been entertaining. It's been going on a while, but it's the last 2 years. Having prescribing psychologists, not a psychiatrist, not a medical doctor, but a psychologist that can prescribe medicine. And so there's a lot of pushback against it, and I agree with the pushback, but I think it's a good conversation to have because it points out we are woefully understaffed as far as our psychiatrists. Most psychiatrists, most of them are private pay because of the way the market is. We have a need, and most of the meds that are used to treat for that are really prescribed by your primary care physician. So there are some other mental health needs, not just those severely mental health deficiency. And I think having a conversation about, okay, well, the way I view it is, if the the medical profession can't do it, we're gonna get some people that aren't medical professionals to start doing this and prescribing these medicines, which I think is dangerous, but I think it's worth having the conversation that talks about how much money, or what's our reimbursement rate. It has to make sense for these doctors to open up practices here in the state that they can actually pay their bills and have a good practice. So I just want to just bring that out there to say that there are other conversations that we're having to try to alleviate the mental health problem as it is a problem in the state.
All right, I want to, and maybe a representative, oh, sorry, does somebody want to add something else there?
Turn it off.
I do want to comment some on having non-physicians prescribing medications. I was on an hour Zoom yesterday with a professor up at Johns Hopkins University about this kratom that we're going to be looking at. And she was not an MD, she was a PhD, but she's done a lot of work on that. The problem we run into, and I asked her this question specifically, and we could do the same thing about these drugs. There's an enzyme in the liver called CYP450 that's involved in the metabolism of over 50% of the drugs that are prescribed. And I asked her specifically, some of you may be on Eliquis, some of you may be on Xarelto. Those are blood thinners. Some of you may be on Coumadin. How do these medicines affect those? How do they affect your heart? Because a lot of the psychiatric medicines will cause what's called prolongation of your QT interval that can lead to an arrhythmia, serious arrhythmias. And if you're already on these medicines and then you're put on one of these psychiatric medicines.
Your coffee just spilled.
Oh.
Sorry.
On one of these psychiatric medicines, those blood thinner, because it's metabolized, those levels can become very, very high. And most of the non-medical people, we're not even talking about nurse practitioners, we're talking about, psychologists. And that's what my concern is that this lady at Johns Hopkins, very, very knowledgeable. When I asked those questions, I said, how does this affect pregnancy? Are we going to be checking? Does it affect the baby? Does it cause birth defects? She didn't have any answers to those questions. That's my concern. We got to protect the public. First, do no harm. First, do no harm. And we do have a lot of nurse practitioners who can prescribe those drugs.
All right, I want to ask a broader question about housing and affordability, which of course has been a major topic of conversation everywhere in the country in recent years, but especially in Knoxville and Knox County. And we just had another study come out this past week that said that the Knoxville area, over the past 5 years, from 2019 to 2024, had the largest gap between the increase in the cost of renting an apartment, and wage increases. And our wages actually went up at about the national average. It was about 27% over that time. But average rental prices went up by 60%. It's a giant gap. There's a lot of talk at the local level. The city has some programs. The county, is pushing for more housing development to try to alleviate the demand. What at the state level is available as a tool, or is there anything that you think needs to be made available to try to address housing affordability? Yeah,
Since I have the microphone, I want to comment on that first. And I think it gets back a lot to what Representative Wright said earlier, is that land use is a local issue. If we want to know, it was just a year and a half ago that Knoxville had the highest apartment occupancy rate. It was over 99%. There were almost no apartments available. There's a problem, and this is a problem that goes back over 20 years, even longer than that now. And it's that too often when developers or whoever was doing it came down to the county commission and they wanted to build apartments, they wanted to build garden homes, they wanted to build townhouses, they were almost uniformly opposed by neighborhoods. They did not want that, and it's still a problem. And that accumulated over those years to where they weren't being allowed to build these, what we call the high density residential zoning areas, in residential zoning areas. And then we ran into the Great Recession where everything drew to a halt. Then it sort of gradually picked up. And then we hit the COVID, where we had supply chain issues, we had inflation, which made it difficult for people to get loans. And a lot of what we had was related to some were natural phenomena that we are, or just economic phenomena that we don't have a lot of control over. But it also had to do, we have to look at ourselves, and it's not in my neighborhood. I don't want apartments, I don't want garden homes. And if you really think about what part of the complaint that our millennials and the generations that are younger to them have been complaining about, they said, we can't afford a home anymore. And also you have people that are like many of you, it's me, it's no secret. I'll be 74 years old this year, and we have a house that's way too big, and we're looking to downsize. And so you have the people that are at the ends, both the starter homes, and people have fewer children than they did before. I mean, do you really need a 4 or 5 bedroom home if there's just mom, dad, and 1 or at most 2 kids? And the answer is probably no. And now we have this large baby boom demographic that's moving into the downsizing, and we're part of that. I'm part of that. So we don't need a big home. I mean, I think some of these garden homes, 2-bedroom garden homes, are really ideal. But if you're if you're a developer or something, try to go down to the county commission. It is hard to get those through. I don't think that there's anything that we can do at the state level. But that's why we are. It's not something that happened overnight. Of course, interest rates have been high, but it's been one phenomena after another. But one of the underlying things deals with the resistance on the part of neighborhoods to not have higher density housing in these, in these areas. And anybody else want to comment? Which way?
So yeah, so in terms of what I think the state can do or should do, and prior to me getting into the General Assembly, I think it was one bill passed in 2016, then another passed in 2018, and this happens a lot. And they tied the hands of the local municipalities to deal with the problem. They basically said, you can't create any programs, and they called it rent control, but that really wasn't what it allows the flexibility in the cities and counties that are dealing with the homeless problem, that are trying to build alternate facilities, like we've done a couple in South Knoxville, Flanagan. Those types of great programs, it helped them to manage that. So the state tied their hands on that. I actually had a bill when that came up that Knox County was the highest rate of increase on rental properties. Didn't go anywhere, unfortunately, but that's what I think we need to do. That's what we can do as a state, is local government. Push it back down to the local municipalities. Yeah, they're gonna have the not in my backyard conversations, but that's where it should happen. It should happen at the city council meetings and the county commission meetings, and not in Nashville at the state level. So that's one, I think, big thing that we could do, is basically give them the tools back that we took away from them.
Okay, and Representative McKenzie, maybe you can keep the mic and start us off on the next question. This says, children in state custody are inadequately provided for. The Department of Children's Services was forced to have court-ordered third-party monitoring for almost 20 years, and then when it ended, DCS went backwards again. Of course, we've seen ongoing headlines about children sleeping in offices. There was just a report that came out that in those situations, many children being exposed to drug use, sexual assault, these kinds of problems. The question says, will you support using rainy day funds for these vulnerable children? I know we've already talked about rainy day funds specifically, but more broadly, does there need to be more state resources brought to the Department of Children's Services? And if so, what? And how would you pay for it?
Yeah, it's deeply troubling when I read these articles and continually see these. I mean, 3 or 4 years ago, they said, well, we gave them a huge increase to try to get the kids out of the office buildings and being heavily occupied in really, really dense environments. And I really think we're probably throwing good money after bad. I don't know if our DCS if the system is gonna work. And again, I think it needs to be, I think we need to look at states that are doing it right and just stop doing what we're doing and do what they're doing. Because it's not something that I think, no, I'm not for spending out of rainy day funds. I don't think we put enough in it, but I don't think they know what they're doing. And if you listen to the budget hearings and the conversations that the leaders are having, they're not answering the questions. It's a problem. It's a problem. There are, and they get accused of a lot, but it's rightfully so. They have kids that are extremely mature with a lot of trauma in their lives in the same rooms with babies, when I buy that, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11-year-olds. So it's a volatile situation. And yes, there's a housing problem. There's not enough people willing to take them in. But I don't think the DCS, our Tennessee's DCS, I don't think they're equipped to really fix these problems. You hear them year after year after year. And the definition of insanity is doing the same thing. And that's what we're doing. We're doing the same thing, expecting a different outcome. So I think we can look at some of these other states that are, similar demographics and try to do better.
The short answer on that, should we take from the rainy day fund for reoccurring event? No, we can't do that. Are things being done incorrectly? I believe there's investigations. I don't want to use the word criminal, but I do want to stress the fact that there are several, and maybe not several, there are at least a couple of things going on that are being investigated. This is one of the things that's being looked at strongly from the point of view of, are we doing things right legally? And for example, of another one, the Memphis school system is currently under a forensic audit. So there are things that do occur at the state level, in my opinion, addressing things that we need to do extremely differently.
I promise to keep this very brief, but it's not all a money problem. We had a new commissioner of children's services that came in. It was either 2 or 3 years ago. I can't remember. It was someone here appointed 2 years ago. And then that year, we put an additional $80 or $90 million into it. Last year, we put an additional $100 million into it out of our regular budget. So it's not entirely a money problem. Part of the problem was they didn't have enough of the counselors and workers that were be able to follow up on things that needed to be done because the salaries were so low. This is tough work. This is a hard job, even for them. Now, the problem that we've run into, I'll just make one quick comment on this, is that we've raised the salaries up, and now what's happening, they're coming down and sort of rating our not-for-profits that take care of children and getting the best people out of those. And we've had some complaints that now they're having trouble hiring people, and they do provide an awful lot of services, our not-for-profits. So, I don't have the solution, but it's not all a money problem.
DCS serves a variety of kids. We have a lot of kids, and the reason in the last number of years that it's really grown the number of kids that they're needing to provide services for is because of the drug epidemic. And a lot of folks, Judge Irwin will talk about that, about the number of kids that are having to be go into foster care over a period of time. And so you've got your traditional foster kids that have gone through some situations at their home and they need to come. And then you've got the other side of the coin, the kids that are basically in juvenile justice, more or less involved. And those are the ones that are the more difficult ones. We've had some issues that I've been working with the children's hospitals across the state of kids that they're serving that have intellectual disabilities. And there's been some significant issues there that DCS really didn't have the expertise. So we worked with DCS and then the Department of Disabilities, it's actually the Department of Disabilities and Aging now, to bring them together to kind of form an MOU a memorandum of understanding on that DCS will reach out and get training from the Department of Disability on how to serve kids with disabilities. What is their, the kids with people with disabilities, obviously that's what I did for 25 years. They have non-negotiables, but if you learn and understand how to work with those folks, you can meet their needs without a lot of disruption. And so they came up with the MOU, but we're actually filing a bill that codifies that memorandum of understanding, because as I told the folks from the department, you may not be here a year or two from now, and the next people may not want to do that MOU. So we're going to have that in writing, that you all will collaborate, because too often departments work in silos, and they need to use that expertise that was there. I've been working, I found actually, part of when you don't have foster homes readily available, when the kids are taken into custody, that's where this sleeping in the offices has happened. Well, it looks like we may be getting a former, it's an old hospital up in Moorestown that can be retrofitted to temporarily house some of these kids so they won't have to sleep in the hospital, and some of the ones that may be a little more involved medically could be there. So that was a connection I made from one of my constituents that was involved in it, connected them up with the commissioner. And I said, I don't know if this works or not, but y'all can talk anyway. And the last thing, though, that I keep going back to, and I'm still just not totally convinced on, coming from the world of intellectual disability providers, we had our protection from harm system was one of the best in the country, if not the best. And at times I felt it was onerous when I was running Sertoma, but it really did protect the folks we serve. I'm not convinced that we have that system in place. And, I may try to look at getting some kind of legislation that says, let's ramp up our protection from harm, because, in the intellectual disability, I said, we had to err on the side of the individuals, and we need to err on the side of these kids. So it is something I'm going to continue to look for ways that we can strengthen it. But I know there are efforts being done kind of around the edges that should help some.
Okay, we'll do one more question, and then Maria will come up to give some farewell remarks. This has to do with your all's compensation. It says, how do state representatives and senators afford to hold these offices? It seems out of reach for regular working people to run for office, to bring our perspectives to the State House. I think with the idea there being that, for a lot of people, because the salary levels are so low, you still have to work a full-time job and try to go back and forth to Nashville. So whoever wants to jump in on that.
Well, I always say if I knew a good attorney, I could file a minimum wage complaint and win. So I think it's kind of a double-sided coin. I mean, we're paid based on a part-time basis, but it's anything but part-time. It is, round the clock. I don't care if you're out of town, you're still looking at emails, you're still kind of taking care of things, even on a family vacation. So there's many of the members do try to do two jobs, but you get, what you end up getting is one, even if you don't agree with somebody on certain things or different things, they're not there for the money, okay? Everybody goes, oh, well, you're getting all this money. And I said, nah, not quite. But you get folks that are either young, that want to invest in their career, and you learn, and make connections and things and look at it as kind of a building stone. You get some people that are in a very flexible job that can handle during the 4 months a year working 1 day a week. Now, when I was still at Sertoma, I took a pay cut when I was elected because I needed to get some things finished off before I stepped down. And I restructured my administrative staff. But even in Nashville, I'm still working on emails for Sertoma, and it never stopped. But you've got to be in a little bit more flexible of job, you know, whether it's insurance sales or different things like that, or you got to be independently wealthy, or you've got to be more kind of where at least the three of us, and I guess Sam, you're finally retired too, didn't you?
I did.
Yeah. You get people that are on the last stage of your life that, I mean, as far as your working life, your career, not your life, your work life, your career, and you have the ability to retire, and you know have often worked, and it's nice because you get different perspectives from each of those. I mean, I feel like that if I had done this when I was young, I would not be near as effective. I would not have had as many experiences working with vulnerable people, and all the different things that I've learned about my community before I was elected has made me the better legislator, and it helps me be more efficient. So they're all good, you know, but the other side of the coin is that, and you see it a little bit more in the House because they're a little younger, but you see a lot more turnover, so you do lose institutional knowledge, but you get people coming with fresh ideas. So it's a good balance. You know, it is what it is. We know what it is going in, and so you know people are there because they care about Tennessee. They may have a different perspective from you, but they do care about Tennessee, and they want to do their part to make it better.
I'm going to make just a brief comment. It's not only the pay, but it's the time away, particularly if you're young and have children at home, where you're gone maybe Sunday night until Thursday evening, and that's a lot of time. And I think that's also, you know, it's not only the financial part, but it's also the hardship. And I really hope, you know, particularly our younger members of the legislature, that people will appreciate it. Is that there's not a lot of fame, there's not a lot of glory, and there's certainly not a lot of financial rewards to this. And these are really good people, a lot of really good people up there that are trying to do the best they can for the state.
And then you do things like this on the weekend. So even when you're home, you're doing things. So.
Okay, Mom. Nothing like losing your train of thought. No, let me back up for just a second. The question was about pay. I don't think it revolves around pay. I think it revolves around thought. If you look at the panel, Senator Massey's been in public service all of her life. The other three, I was with AT&T, so the people that called on Monday morning, they didn't call to say, my telephone service is terrific. I just wanted to call and let you know. No, they called with a perspective of they needed something. We have all been members of commission, Board of Education, City Council. I think that someone that is at the state level needs some experience in dealing with people and issues so that they'll know when they arrive in Nashville what they've been doing to us. Now we are the they. And from the younger perspective, cash flow is a problem. It's either retired folk or independently wealthy folk that are in the State House right now.
So I'll slightly different. I'll agree that it is, there's a dichotomy that exists now, and a lot of it is pay. And I've thought about this a lot. So what does pay look like? I think we are too low. But if you made it a full-time job, I think you would get a different type of legislator. And that would be of concern to me in terms of I'm building a career here just to do this. I think I don't think, it's just the whole premise of a part-time legislator is that you got your career, you're doing good work, you love your area, and you want to serve. It really is a public service. So, but it has to come with something. And I like the diversity of experience. Folks, a lot of people retired, a lot of people independently wealthy, but there are also, 20-somethings that just have a desiring, burning need to serve their community and to impart their ideas. So, what we had talked about, I don't think it'll ever pass in this state, is to tie it to a percentage of Congress. Okay, like 25% of what a Congress person makes. That way, it's it would be more than we are now. I don't know if we're 20-something right now, but it would help them get over the top, because you're not going to get rich. As Senator Massey said, working at McDonald's is a better paying job than what we're doing. I've asked Kathy what she had not taught. She's going to keep this set up, because I'll be right back here at 3:00. Please come for our town hall meeting for all the folks. So it's nonstop. It's always something. Three of us will be together tomorrow. It's every weekend, and there is a piece of it that should be compensated. I don't think we're where we should be. A lot of people may disagree with that. It needs to be more, but how much more, we can argue that, but it does need to be more. I think we will attract and retain people that are there for the right reasons.
All right. Before I just hand this over to Maria, I just want to say, as a reporter, first of all, I'm so happy to see all of you out here. It's great for people to show up on a Saturday morning. I always appreciate when public officials are willing to come out in public and engage in open dialogue. And these four who you see up here, I think if you come to a lot of these events, you know that all four of them are very regular attendees. They will show up even on a Saturday morning. I really appreciate that. And now I'll pass it off to Maria. Oh, sorry,
Do we get closing remarks?
Sure. Let's do closing remarks.
And I'll go first.
There you go.
Bless you. We talk about a lot of issues that I sometimes see as negative, but I do want to brag on the state about one thing that is currently ongoing, and that's the increasing of educational opportunities as you get through high school. Pellissippi State's been at Straw Plains exit for several years now. Kids graduate with a piece of paper from Pellissippi State 2 weeks in front of graduating with a piece of paper from Knox County Schools. That's a good thing. That's been a year or two or three. Just this past fall in Union County, of which I'm closer to Maynardville than I am to here, TCAT was opened. A campus of the Tennessee College of Applied Technologies is on the Union County High School footprint. High school kids can be in high school this morning and in TCAT this afternoon and be ready to enter the workforce upon graduation from both at the same time. I just wanted to bring that as a highlight of what I think the state of Tennessee is doing to improve graduation. Now then, so I had a positive thing, I've got a negative thing. As members of the Transportation Committee and Transportation Chair,
That's her, not me.
Yeah, I can't reach Mom from here. I'm going to speak about Mom in just a minute. Roads in the state of Tennessee are in an $80 billion chug hole. And as someone might say, well, we need to borrow the money, and I don't know whether my granddaughter needs to be paying for the roads that we need to be driving on today. We had a flat tire a moment ago, and that was a rainy day fund issue. It's more than taxes on automobile tires to fix transportation. You have to realize today, you sitting here, something has to happen on transportation. We're just not spending the money. Where's the money going to come from? That's a question you have to answer. Then I have blue books. I've got 3. If it's more than that, give me your name and address. Now then, for the last thing, I'm speaking about Mom. Senator Massey is the mom of the Knox County delegation. I think she ought to be the mom of the Senate, so I hereby place a nomination for the Speaker of the Senate, Lieutenant Governor of the state of Tennessee, that
there you
Becky
go.
Massey be the Speaker of the Senate, and I think
I second.
I had a second.
But again, but yes, I definitely second that, and it is, Senator McNally had, decades of just, outstanding services. Sad to see, he's retiring, but I definitely understand him wanting to get on with his, life. But, it's, what I'll end with is, again, how I started. Thank you all for staying engaged. We have to make sure this is public service, and it needs to be in the public and vetted in the public. And as we think about how we're going to get better where we need to get better, it's taking things out of darkness. The three of us ran for county commission as a result of Black Wednesday, where backroom deals were happening when then Commissioner Harmon was, there, just like, what's going on around me? And then, there's black smoke would come out, and here we go, So we don't want to degrade into that, and if we don't push us, we'll start to do these backroom deals as a General Assembly. So again, thank you all. And the last thing I'll say is, it's always good to have great candidates. Great candidates. I'm looking at Brian Goldberg in the back of the room. Great candidates. And that's what we have to continually supply ourselves with. However much we pay, whatever, we have to have great candidates all over both sides. But we need to make sure that we're encouraging people to get in public service. I enjoy it. I lose a lot. I don't win a whole lot of votes, but it's a very, very rewarding experience. So thank you.
I'm just gonna, make a comment. Too many people, we get so many emails, and you see so much on television about national issues. There's a lot occurs at the state, but you've heard many of us talk about what can be done here locally. And I think that we really need to emphasize who serves and what the issues are on the county commission, the city council, and the school board. What they do is affects your life every single day, and we really need to emphasize that. And it's not necessarily what's going on nationally. And if you ask someone, maybe 5 things that Biden did for or against you, this and that. Of course, you watch that on TV 24 hours a day. But where it really happens is here at the local government. And that's where a lot of the solutions are. And it's not in Nashville, and it's not in Washington. It's right here in your own backyard.
Thank you. And so Mom will do cleanup. But
You're nominated.
thank you. They don't have a vote. So anyway. No, I do thank y'all for being here. I had told the story earlier to one of the announcers, the TV folks here, but the best question I ever got, and I just want y'all to think about this. They said, do you listen to your constituents, or do you just do what you want to do? And I said, I absolutely listen to the constituents. I show up. I don't care if I'm at church, grocery store, at forums. I hear what people say, or Motley Crue. I mean, people tell you what you think, and by showing up and people get to know me, they feel comfortable talking to me as Becky and saying, okay, I really don't like that, I do like that. I mean, and we meet at Panera offices. I mean, you listen. But I said to this young fellow, I said, do you think every one of my constituents agrees on a particular issue? And he goes, no. And I go, well, then which one do I listen to? And I said, I actually listen to all of them. I listen to both sides. And if it's, let's say it's a very divisive issue, which thankfully most things aren't, but if it is, I look at the people that are against it and say, okay, do they have legitimate concerns? Is that something I can ask to see if I can do something about that? If it's people that are for it and promoting it, is everything they're saying that's the greatest thing that's going to happen with it, is that accurate? And so you ask questions and you look, but at some point you have to make a decision. I mean, we're not paid these big bucks to go there and put the blue light every time. I mean, yeah, so we do have to make a decision, and there's, oftentimes on the divisive issues, there's right on both sides. But you do listen, and I think every one of us up here listens and is available and shows up. But like I say, at some point, so I promise you, at some point I'm gonna vote some way that you don't want me to. I promise you that. There's times I don't even agree with myself 100%, but you know, it's okay. As long as we can have respectful conversations and treat each other the way we need to treat each other, it's okay to disagree. And so I just kind of want to leave on that, because I think especially these other three up here, and I really try to model that. And I thank you all. There's been a great morning, great questions, and appreciate y'all being here.
I want to thank, well, I'm going to call y'all the core four who always make it to this, and we appreciate it. We appreciate this audience too. It's one of the best and most engaged audiences we've had in a while, so thank you to all of you. Also want to thank Pierce Gentry. He's an ETSBJ board member and voice at WOT. He answered my call late yesterday. We need help setting up the sound system. He's a radio voice, not a radio engineer, and he managed to get it set up, so thank you, Pierce. I also want to thank WBLT for staying with us for the duration. TV coverage of these events is ideal, and we appreciate you. WATE had another assignment, but he was here too. So thank you to all of you for coming here. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for always partnering with us, and we appreciate them. And appreciate y'all coming back after we had to reschedule it. One more shout out to Senator Massey and her assistant Carly Nelson, who I need to add to my Christmas holiday card list, because she is instrumental in getting this event promoted and pushed to the other legislators. I wish we could get more of the legislative delegation. Maybe we'll add a spirited dodgeball event after it. Maybe that'll be split up fun. We can pick teams, have team captains pick teams, and maybe have a little dodgeball contest afterwards. Thank you so much to everyone, and we'll hopefully see you again in 2027.